Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to the regular meeting of the Mayor and the Board of Trustees, the Village of Blue Ridge. It is September 26th. Of course, we're being led tonight by a student once again, the Pledge of Allegiance. His name is Vince Mecha, and Vince, per his principal, John Glimko, is a wonderful, bright, and caring young man. Our students are recently returned from an annual outdoor education trip, and Vincent impressed all of us with his positive attitude, his willingness to assist his peers, and simply how kind and thoughtful he was to all. This wonderful attitude is on display each day in the hallways and the classrooms. He actually likes to play soccer and karate, and as well as playing with his brothers. He's currently reading a lot of Harry Potter books. He enjoys all kinds of music and is a musician himself, playing the clarinet in the band. He also likes classes in music and English. We are proud, his principal says, to have Vincent representing Pleasantdale Middle School. His parents are here tonight, Alexandria, or Alex, and his dad, Sam Mecha. They're here tonight, and some of you may remember Vince, who led the Pledge of Allegiance at the County Line Road Bridge dedication last year, representing Pleasantdale. We are very pleased to welcome him back to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you again, Vince. Thank you. Karen, may I have roll call, please?
Trustee Francis.
Here.
Trustee Grasso. Trustee Pavesa.
Here.
Trustee Bolus.
Here.
Trustee Murphy.
Here.
Trustee Schiappa.
Here.
Mayor Straub.
Here. And now we have the residents' comments section. Are there any residents that'd like to address the board this time, perhaps on any of the agenda items? You see no one? I'd like to move on to the consent agenda, otherwise known as the omnibus vote. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine by the village board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a board member so requests, in which event it will be removed. Under minutes, we have 5A, approval of regular board meeting of September 12th, 2016. 5B, receive and file draft pathway commission meeting of September 8th, 2016. 5C, receive and file draft plan commission meeting of September 19th, 2016. And 5D, receive and file draft economic development committee meeting of September 20th, 2016. There is nothing under ordinances, but under resolutions, we have adoption of resolution authorizing intergovernmental agreement between the Village of Blue Ridge and Cook County for the provision of environmental health inspection services. Under considerations, we have, that will be 8E, approval of Plan Commission recommendation to approve variation to permit the location of accessory structures, including an outdoor kitchen, fireplace, and storage structure to be located in a side buildable area rather than in the rear yard. That's V05-2016, located at 300 Tamerton Parkway, Carls. Under 8F, approval of Plan Commission recommendation to approve PUD amendment to allow the construction of a bistro serving a limited menu of food and beverages for cash and to allow the sale of alcoholic beverages in the bistro, located at Z09-2016, 6101 County Line Road. That's the King Brewbar House. Under 8G, we have the approval of Plan Commission recommendation to approve requests for private sanitary sewer system. That's PC 09-2016, located at 8405 Oak Knoll Drive. Under 8H, we have approval of employment training agreement for Patrol Officer Thomas Gregory Hoster. 8I, approval of employment training agreement for Patrol Officer Kyle Anthony Jerolomic. 8J, approval of recommendation to award contract for purchase of trees for 2016 Fall Tree Planting Program. K, receive and file a resignation letter from Public Works full-time general utility worker 1 Anthony Clementi, effective September 30th, 2016. And approval of recommendation to fill the full-time general utility worker 1 position created by the resignation of Anthony Clementi in the Water Division. 8M, approval of vendor list in the amount of $126,136.24 for all funds, plus $207,720.09 for payroll, for a grand total of $333,856.33, which includes a special expenditure of $92,097 to Curry Motors for 3 2017 Ford Explorer Police Squad cars. May I have a motion to approve the following items on the consent agenda? That will be 5A, 5B, C, and D. 7A, considerations 8E, F, G, 8H, I, and J, K, L, and M.
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Skiappa.
Yes.
Trustee Francis.
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa.
yes,
Trustee Bolus.
Yes.
Trustee Murphy.
Yes.
All items are approved, 5-0. And under ordinances, we have 6A.
yes. This ordinance, as it relates to amending Chapter 12 of the Village Municipal Code relative to personal wireless telecommunication facilities in the public right-of-way. We continued this from the discussion we had on September the 12th. 3 questions were raised at that meeting. First, what we really meant by alternative antenna structure, and I've provided you with some examples that Michael Mars provided me. Things can be alternative antennas, structures including clock towers, man-made trees, bell steeples, rooftops, water towers, billboards, commercial signs, ball field lights, windmills, etc. Now, obviously, because the ordinance concerns right-of-way rather than private property, the definition excludes utility poles and village-owned infrastructure. The occurrence of alternative antenna structures will, in reality, be pretty rare, if not at all, but they still wanted to have the term in there. And so as a possible catch-all, so that's why that term is in the definitions. The second related to the issue of co-location. Again, co-location means having more than one cell antenna device on one pole. Co-location is specifically not allowed in the right-of-way in this particular ordinance unless a variance is granted. And again, a variance would not be granted unless for good cause. And then third, which I think is the most important, is dealing with the height. We asked how that 35 feet and the 7-foot extension related. Again, it's 35 feet maximum. And so the idea would be if you had a 28-foot pole, you could extend it an additional 7 feet to make it 35, but you couldn't go over 35. Now, in discussing this with the village attorneys, and, as remember at the last meeting, we talked about the fact that this ordinance only regulates our right-of-way, not the county right-of-way. And we talked about, well, what can we do to be able to have some say in what goes on in the county right-of-way, the state right-of-way, and the thought was we'd have to somehow do it through the zoning ordinance. They are working on that, and that's something that would have to go through the Plan Commission and then back to the village board, or to be an amendment to the zoning ordinance, which would basically refer back to this ordinance. So we wouldn't have anything different or new in the Plan Commission or in the zoning document. It would all be referred back to this. But in that discussion, the feeling was that, well, that 35 feet, where did that come from? Is because that's basically the average height of a utility pole. But in the county right-of-way or state right-of-way, there could be higher poles, higher structures, taller structures. And the feeling was that we would be hard-pressed to be able to force somebody to add 35 feet when those structures already existed. And so they felt like the ordinance should be adjusted and amended to allow for one of these small cell antennas to be allowed on a taller pole than 35 feet as long as it's existing. And I think the feeling is if the higher it up it is, the less obtrusive it probably would become, because you wouldn't really be looking at it. But you just go down County Line Road, you see those tall poles that the state has, and I'm sure along some of the county right-of-ways, you might see something higher than, taller than 35 feet. So That's the reason for that particular change. Again, I view this ordinance as a stopgap measure to get something in the books so we can start regulating these as they come forward, and they are out there. I just had a meeting of my group of DuPage mayors and managers this afternoon. We met with the company Mobility. They're the ones who want to put these 120-foot towers up, very disconcerting, and they are moving very quickly. And so I think it's time that we get these regulations in place. When they come, they see our regulations, hopefully they'll go somewhere else.
This would prohibit that.
Well, our ordinance would prohibit that. Now, they could petition the board for variance to allow for a monopole, a new monopole. But hopefully we can convince them to do something different, either put it on private property or an existing pole that's out there. Mobility right now has a contract with Sprint, and so when you're dealing with Mobility, you're going to be dealing with Sprint. That doesn't mean tomorrow they may sign a contract with T-Mobile or somebody else, but right now they're really the agents for Sprint. So again, I am recommending that we approve this ordinance.
Trustee Scapa?
Height restriction for private property, correct?
Well, that's covered by the zoning ordinance
Right.
already.
Trustee Willis?
I agree, we have to do something, and I don't think, I think it's going to have being tweaked as time goes on, because we stop this, the utilities are going to come up with something else. So we're going to have to keep continuing tweaking this and watching this pretty carefully to see what else they come up with. Now, 35 feet maximum unless the pole itself is higher.
Right.
Okay, so we don't have anything above the 25-foot poles in the village, right? That are village-owned with streetlights and
I can't be sure 100%, but I think that's the average. And again, with the seven, so in other words, if there was a 40-foot pole somewhere, you couldn't add 7 feet to it. The only way you can add that 7 feet is if it was 28 feet or less.
Okay. It's just frustrating to be bullied by these people. That's all.
Anyone else?
I think on something like this, we should get something on the books so we have something to refer to when there is a problem.
Anyone else?
I agree, this is an important first step. We'll continue to tweak it as we learn more and we have more knowledge on the subject, and then more of these examples are seen throughout the suburbs and throughout Illinois. Question of staff, Steve, for a petitioner to come in and want a different height, he'd have to show hardship for that variance, correct?
Well, hardship not in terms of, you think of zoning.
Yes.
There'd have to be, I think you're talking about a reasonable accommodation. In other words, we talked this morning or this afternoon about, well, if I could put one higher up on a pole, then I could do it that way, or I could put 2 of them lower.
Right.
To cover that same area. And maybe we would rather have one a little higher than 2 lower.
Sure.
And that would be the reason why we would say okay.
Okay. I just want to understand your thinking and the
Yeah,
process.
and why would we allow a new monopole? Well, maybe in a corporate park somewhere.
Yeah.
We might not be concerned about it. Obviously, in the residential subdivision, absolutely not. But there could be areas where it would work.
Are we encouraging these poles to look like anything else but poles? Trees, flag poles,
Yeah, no.
those types of things? No?
There's nothing in here, although, we do have coverings for the antennas.
Yeah, okay, very good. Thank you for some great efforts in drafting this and getting this important first step.
Steve, if I may, you had mentioned something about the village will be submitting a letter, writing a letter.
Yes.
You want to mention that also to the
Well,
residents?
this is just the whole issue of small cell antennas and the concern that we have, current legislation down in Springfield that Verizon had proposed And it actually got out of committee 17-0, but now it's just sitting there in its second reading, I think. And it's a major concern because it basically would take away all of our authority. We have a draft, our little committee this afternoon reviewed a letter. We're going to tweak that a little bit. And then the full DuPage Mayor's Managers Board of Directors will approve that first meeting of October. And then that'll be sent out through the DuPage Mayors, but then they're going to also send it to other municipalities so that we could use that as a model. So hopefully by the next meeting, we can have that for discussion.
That'd be great.
And maybe, hopefully, even an accompanying resolution I'm hoping for too, so.
Any further discussion? Any?
Make a motion, we approve the ordinance.
Second?
Been a motion and a second. May I have roll call, please?
Trustee Bavazza?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Bolus?
Yes.
Trustee Murphy?
yes,
Trustee Scalpa?
Yes.
Thank you, Steve. And now under considerations, the presentation of the fiscal year 2015-2016 audit. I assume Jerry will be making that presentation.
Jerry is going to introduce our auditor. This is your auditor, and we thought that you should have the opportunity, as we do every year, to hear from them and then ask any questions that you may have.
Part of an annual oversight of financial records is an annual audit and the financial records of the village. And this is the third year for the current firm, BKD. And I just want to introduce Scott Termaine. He's a partner with the firm, and he's going to review this year's audit and the results.
Thanks, Jerry. Thank
Well,
you to
welcome, Scott.
the entire board for having us back to conduct the audit again this year. Just briefly, I'd like to thank Jerry and Lynette and really all of the finance staff for all the hard work that they put into preparing for the audit. It definitely helps to keep things moving more efficiently and allow them to ultimately get back to and continue doing all the important work that they have to do when we're out here. We spend a couple weeks on site middle part of July, and it was very much appreciated of all the work that they put into the engagement. As is customary for the audit, we provide two deliverables as part of our engagement. The first one is the bound document, which is the audited set of financial statements. And then we also provide to you a required communication to the board that summarizes the results of the audit. I'll touch on the financial statements briefly first. Within that document, you have, as in the past, what we refer to as an unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements, which is exactly what you want to have under the circumstances. That means that we were able to satisfy ourselves that everything was presented properly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Additionally, within that opinion, we do make mention of a new accounting standard that was adopted for the year. It relates to the village's pension, both the IMRF and police pension plans. The pensions continue to be a significant issue for all municipalities, and this standard does change the reporting and disclosures related to those pension plans. Otherwise, the report is very much the same format as it has been in prior years. If you've not already done so, I would certainly encourage you to take a look at what we refer to as the management's discussion and analysis, which is on pages 4 through 13. That provides a nice narrative overview of the financial statements and summarizes some of the results of activities. So it's very easy to follow in terms of just summarized comparative data for you. And then the second document that I referenced then is our letter to the board, and that's often referred to as the management letter. This year, I'm happy to report that we did not have any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in regards to the village's internal control structure. We also do not have any disagreements or difficulties in conducting the audit that we need to report to you. So it's a very clean letter. We do point out a couple new accounting standards that the village is going to have to adopt in the upcoming fiscal years. So we just bring those matters to your attention to make you aware that those are coming. So really with that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer any of those or provide any further clarification that I can for you.
Trustees, any questions of them?
I have no questions, but thank you for a very detailed and thorough report.
Thank you.
Else?
No, I have no questions. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Whoops.
Yes.
Are some of the accounting standards going to change next year, or will everything stay the same?
There is one new standard that the village will have to, actually there's two that are going to come into play. One will not have a very significant impact on you. The other one that I'm referring to that will come into effect is one that has to do with fair value measurements for the village's investments. This will not significantly change the numbers in the financial statements, but it will have a significant effect on the footnotes to the financial statements and some of the disclosures around the investment balances. But in terms of number changes, it will not be significant to you. Certainly more significant was this year's adoption of the pension standards.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks again, Scott.
Thank you.
Anything else on that? I don't think so. Here, moving on to C, consideration of the Plan Commission recommendation to hold a public hearing. I'm sorry, 8B, consideration of Plan Commission recommendation to approve rezoning the O2 office hotel district to the R5 planned residence district in a variation for the text amendment. Doug Pollack.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm here to present to you the recommendation from the Plan Commission to approve a petition by David Weekly Homes. The petition includes a rezoning of the property at 22.5 acre property at 1400 Burridge Parkway and 11650 Bridewell Drive, which is next to the Marriott Hotel property in the Burridge Corporate Park. The rezoning is to change the zoning from the existing O2 office and hotel district to the R5 planned residence district. The Plan Commission is also recommending approval of an amendment to the zoning ordinance to the R5 district that would include reducing the minimum land area for a planned unit development in an R5 district from 40 acres to 20 acres. And finally, they are recommending approval of a planned unit development to accommodate the development of a residential subdivision with 52 single-family homes developed in a similar manner and platted in a similar manner as the Savoy Club and Lake Ridge Club in Burr Ridge, that being with private streets and common areas between homes rather than private yards. The Plan Commission held their public hearing last week on September 19th. They determined that the property is suitable for residential use, and they believe it is unlikely to be developed under the current zoning, which is the office district, and is undesirable for retail or industrial uses. The Commission also determined that the R5 district was appropriate given the surrounding mix of office, mixed use and single-family residential, and the proximity of the only other R5 district in the village, which is the Chase Moore townhomes at the southern end of the Burridge Corporate Park. The proposed or recommended amendment to the R5 district would clearly identify that the R5 district is restricted to areas with a mixture of residential and non-residential uses, such as the subject property, and also, as I mentioned, reduce the allowable area or minimum area for an PUD to 20 acres. All of these amendments to the R5 district accommodate the proposed development at this location while eliminating any precedent for similar development in a single-family residential neighborhood. That was the intent of the text amendments. Finally, the Commission reviewed the proposed planned unit development site plan and determined that the number of units, the type of units, and the street layout was consistent with the R5 district and is appropriate for this location. The only deviations from the R5 district proposed by the developer and recommended by the Plan Commission is a reduction of the front and corner side yard setbacks for the homes, which was intended to bring the homes closer to the street and create a better pedestrian environment. All other aspects of the proposed subdivision comply with the R5 district, including density and the number of units. If approved, the developer will be required to come back before the Plan Commission and the Village Board with final engineering plans, final landscaping plan, building elevations. Additional details that were brought up during the public hearing will be addressed at those times. This approval is limited to preliminary plan approval. The petitioner is present and available, as is Chairman Greg Chupek as the official representative of the Plan Commission, and I'd be happy to answer any questions as well.
Trustees, you have any questions of Doug? Or would you like to?
I just would like you to reiterate how this is not precedential. It's got to be another R5 development would have to be a mix of residential and non-residential in an area like that. It can't happen behind the pump station.
That was the intent, is that this R5 district is being limited to areas that are next to non-residential uses in a mixed-use environment.
Okay, I just needed it repeated.
Anyone like to hear from the petitioner? Or Trustee
I have
Renzi?
questions.
Pardon me?
I have questions of the petitioner.
Okay, may I ask the petitioner to join us?
Good evening. My name is Kevin C. I'm the Land Acquisition Manager for David Weekley Homes, offices in Schaumburg, Illinois. You have some questions, sir?
Yes. First and foremost, thank you for listening to the residents during the two Plan Commission meetings, the public hearings, listening to them about their concerns for density, their concerns for traffic, and the concerns for enhancing the village. And I also want to thank the residents that came out and spoke at the two Plan Commission public hearings, voicing their important opinions on this development. And I'm glad you responded to their concerns. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about schedule. Schedule for your final engineering and final plat of survey and all of your submittals to the village. What's your anticipated timetable for that?
Well, we plan to work diligently to finish the engineering work, the architectural drawings, and then come back as soon as possible. Ideally, we could submit and go through that entire process and be done, January. That way we can proceed to submit and get the required permits. Then when the weather breaks in the spring, have enough thaw that we can start doing the earthwork. We would like to do that weather dependent.
So for 52 homes, you expect to build out of 2, 3, 4 years? What's your timetable, approximately?
Well, we'd like to sell between 1.5 and 2 homes per month during the marketing period. So we'll do our land development, which may take, the bulk of the summer. So we'll probably have finished lots sometime in July or August of next year. We'll start building the model. When the model is close to being complete, we would start the marketing program and then sell, at hopefully a good pace, and then build out those homes as we go. It'll probably take us about 4 months to build each of the homes. So when we finish, the sale of the last home, you would think there would be another, 4 or 5 months beyond that. Then we would do all the work to do the final cleanup of the community and go away. So probably within a 3-year total time period, we expect to be finished with the project.
So the residents nearby know what they're in for the next 3 years?
Yes, sir.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you. Will you be doing this all in phases, or just as customers come along and make the purchase, or?
Well, unfortunately, there's a lot of topography on the site.
Yes, there is.
So we have to do the best we can to balance the earth on that site and minimize either the import of dirt or the export. It looks like we're probably going to have soil that we'll have to haul off. So I think we'll have to do all of the earthwork in one phase.
Okay.
And then we'll build the homes. We'll put up a few, we call them showcase homes. It's really a few homes out in advance of our sales, but generally we'll build homes as buyers, buy them.
Okay.
But we'll develop the land in one phase.
And at that time, you'll be putting all the required detention in it as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Looking back at your initial proposal of 75 homes on 22.5 acres, and then reducing it to 52 homes on 22.5 acres, it's a sizable reduction, and we appreciate that, you listening to the residents and listening to their concerns. Also, I think this is a much better plan because at the time you had 57 of those 75 were through-lot homes, and now you have 27 of 52. So it was 76% of the homes are through lots, and now it's down to 52. So that's an improvement for the desirability of the homes. So will you be, this may be a question for staff as well, will the developer be required to perform any improvements along Commonwealth with respect to curb and gutter, street widening and all, or I don't know if that's even desired by the residents there, but.
The issue was brought up at the prior public hearing that mentioned in the staff written summary to the Plan Commission before the last meeting. It appeared that the consensus from the residents on Commonwealth at the first hearing back in May was that they didn't want their street bothered. Okay. They wanted it to be left alone. The main thing they wanted was an enhanced buffer along the west side of Commonwealth, and so that's where the Plan Commission left it at.
Very good.
With that. I should also mention there was a pathway connection from the end of Commonwealth to the pathway system in the corporate park that's included in the plans.
Thanks, Doug. You had mentioned providing a structure over the spillway for the existing pond, and if the timing didn't work out, you'd pay for that later or get it installed later, but that I think is an important aspect of this project. One of the residents did say, or did ask, well, what are you giving back to the village? What are you giving back to the residents for the opportunity to build this development and get some relief from the village so you could move forward with this development? I think that bridge you're talking about, or some structure over the spillway to connect the north half and the south half of the pond is a great idea. I'd like to see that implemented. The pathway you're proposing along the east side of the pond, that'll be concrete?
It'll be the same material as here, and
Can I answer that?
sure.
Well, there's a mix of materials, that's why I'm asking.
It will be concrete. It's required by code to be concrete.
Okay, very good.
Developer probably didn't know, but
The pathway on the south end along the east side of the pond, it stops about 150 feet from the spillway, and it's concrete to that point, the south end. It's off the map, to the south.
So,
You're talking.
keep going. Keep going.
Keep going south. Keep going. Keep going. Yeah, it stops over there by about the L.
Oh, okay.
And it's concrete to that point, and then you connect at that point. I believe that's where your lot ends.
Yes.
Connect to that point.
We'll complete the connections from our property over to where it stops over there.
Excellent.
Spillway requires a separate permit because the pond, the lake, is controlled by the Army Corps of Engineers. That's why there's a separate permitting process to get, whatever approvals we need to put the structure over that spillway creek.
Okay, and as you continue north and then continue west and head over towards the village center on the existing pathway, that is asphalt, and that'll be abandoned in lieu of, or removed in lieu of what you're proposing there?
That's what we're showing.
Okay, excellent. That'll make a continuous loop all the way around that pond. And give you an analogy what that loop does. There's a continuous loop pathway around Walker Park at Pleasantdale Park District on Wolf Road. And that is a constant source for residents to walk that entire pathway. It's X number of miles. And I see them going both directions all the time, and it's in constant use. And I feel that this would be an enhancement to the village. This would allow for that same type of constant use for walkway around this lake.
And there's no true connection right now from the residents east, either from Commonwealth or here, so we're going to make that.
You're going to make that connection to Commonwealth.
Somehow to allow them, because right now they walk across,
And
it's kind of a dirt gravel path.
there is a gravel pathway connection at 73rd Place, and you would improve that as well to concrete. I know the residents, they like their gravel, but it may not be the safest thing.
You know, we haven't talked about that. We planned on making the connection here, but we'll work with the village to figure out the best way,
Okay.
you know, to make this
It'll be
useful
fun.
for the residents.
Okay,
So
very good.
we'll have to come back and submit the plans for.
Understood. So I just want to get that out there. I know the residents spoke and they liked their gravel, but it may not be the safest thing. So the petitioner will be required to submit, make all the proper impact fee donations for streets, I'm sorry, for schools, parks, and pathways. Okay, he's agreed to that. Okay. That's all the questions I have at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions of Kevin?
The landscaping plan will be submitted to the village for approval also, correct?
Yes, it will. When we come back for the submittal of the final plat, the final engineering, we'll submit a landscape plan as well, which will include, you know, not only the plantings and the vegetation, but, you know, where we landscape certain feature areas. It'll also include the entry monumentation. It'll be the full landscape proposal.
And as far as pond maintenance, you said at the Plan Commission that the pond is maintained by the business association?
There is an HOA for the pond now, so we would be required to contribute to that to maintain the pond.
And then the homeowners association, once you're finished, will then be required to contribute to that?
Yeah, it'll probably be, you know, we'll collect the dues from our homeowners. One of the line items on that budget will be the HOA dues that are due to the association for the pond.
Okay. For those folks that were not at the Plan Commission, you want to kind of explain what this development is in a quick nutshell? These are homes that are sitting on a pad, correct?
Yes, they're age-targeted homes. So most of the homes will have the master bedroom on the first floor. It's really geared to someone who's interested in the lifestyle, the proximity to the village center, Burr Ridge downtown, Lifetime Fitness. So we're trying to make it as pedestrian-friendly as possible, but it's also geared, you know, the master bedroom's on the first floor. If you don't want to climb stairs, it's appropriate for you. There are two-story homes, so if the kids or grandkids come to visit, they'll have their area upstairs to go. But the land plan is really not designed for children because you don't have a defined lot where you can put a fence, where you can put a swing set, those things that, you know, families with children would want. So you will have fee simple ownership to the pad and the home that sits on that pad. But much like Savoy Club, the area between the homes, behind the homes, that's common area, you know, limited. And our engineers here who drew the plat, so I hope I don't misspeak, but it's like limited common elements. So certain areas will be full common area, other parts, you know, like your patio, will have limited common access. So in essence, I own my pad, I own my home in a fee simple ownership, but the other areas around that are all common area. That really makes the community more suitable to empty nesters rather than families.
And I also do appreciate you reducing the density. You listen to the residents, and they seem to be pleased that you reduce the density. And the size of these homes will be between 2,000 and 3,000 square feet?
It will be 2,000, maybe 2,100 square feet would probably be the smallest unit, and that's most likely going to be a ranch home. And we will go up to about 3,300 square feet. That does not include the basement. All of the homes are going to have basements. We'll probably put in the utility stubs in the basement in case someone ever wanted to finish that out. But right now, I think we're just going to offer unfinished basements. But the homes will range from, you know, a little over 2,000 square feet to about 3,300. We'll probably have 5 different plans, maybe 6. You know, we haven't fully decided yet. We'll work with staff to, you know, go through the approval process on the architectural plans. But we'll have probably at least 5 different plans that buyers could choose from. One of those certainly will be a ranch. We're still doing in-depth market analysis. We had a market study performed by an outside consultant. We've done our own research. We'll probably have one plan that has a three-car tandem garage that takes up, a good bit of the first floor footprint. So we'll move the master bedroom to the second floor. That gives us the opportunity to do like a master bedroom suite up there, if that's something that buyers are interested in. But that would also allow a three-car tandem garage on the first floor. All the other plans are probably just going to be mastered down, two-story homes, and size range within that.
And you'd also said the streetscape will be differentiated. It won't be a cookie cutter type.
It will
barren
be.
look.
We'll have a number of different elevations for each plan. And we'll work with staff to select those and go through the material list and work, with your architectural committee to get those approved. But our goal is to have, a lovely streetscape with variation. We will submit a monotony code to you for approval, so that we won't have the, same house over and over and over, down the street. We would, like you, we would like a streetscape that has some variation into it.
And your price range?
Right now, I think it'll probably start in the, 650, 680 maybe, and then go up to probably the mid 800s for the larger unit. Those are base prices. There may be opportunity to sell options or whatever, like typical builders, but those will be the base prices that we're projecting right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Kevin, I'm glad you clarified the idea of a pad. 'Cause when you think of a pad, many people think of no crawl space,
Oh,
no
no.
basement.
No.
These are,
The foundation, yeah.
and the square footage you're talking about doesn't count the square footage in the basement, of course.
Does not count the basement, no. So the, I guess it's my land developer hat, the lingo that we use, but you'll basically we have a, 41 by 82 foot pad. The foundation would actually be a max of 40 feet wide by 81 feet. So you have, a 6-inch area to the outside of your foundation. That allows us flexibility when we're building the homes in the field. We have a little bit, of space.
A little bit of room.
Right. So that's the area that you will own, the foundation area, and then the home on top of that. It will be fee simple ownership.
Thank you. Any other questions of Kevin? Any further discussion? I'm going to, yes.
One question. Can you tell me a little bit more about the monotony code? I mean, if you have 5 different plans, homes, next to each other, are you going to also regulate the fascia and the roof and what
We
have you?
will.
I mean, if they all have the same roofs and all the same color siding or same color brick.
Yeah. So let's say we have 5 plans, and we have 3 or 4 elevations for each plan. Those will be different. They'll have different, arrangement of the materials, different colors. We will have a predefined color package that we, agree on with you. We'll have a material list. It'll define, the different architectural elements of that elevation in advance. So we will know, the different choices that we have in terms of color and elevation and plan. And then the monotony code will be such that we can't, put those, the same house side by side, the same house can't be across the street, so that we'll have a nice variation as we build out the community.
It's a unique property and it's a unique project, and I thank you for upgrading the plan to what it's at now.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank staff and the Plan Commission and really everyone who's worked with us over the past year and a half to get to this point. I think it's a great plan. We're very excited about the prospect of building homes in Burr Ridge, and we think it would be a great success, and we're excited about it. So thank you very much.
And Trustee Pavesa?
Is David Weekly Homes going to be the sole builder on this property? Because in the past, we approve subdivisions, and once they're in, they sell lots to other builders. Is David Weekly going to handle this all by themselves, or is that going to be also a project?
No, we're a home builder. If we could buy finish lots and never have to do land development, that would be great. But what we really want to do is ultimately build homes and, have happy customers. So it's our intention to build this entirely by ourselves, David Weekley Homes. To be a David Weekley Homes branded community.
Any questions of trustees? Any trustee Francis?
One other question. I just want to clarify and talk a little bit more about the monotony code. Reflecting back to the Savoy Club when that came before the Plan Commission and ultimately before the Village Board, we spent a lot of time in a lot of meetings talking about the elevations. They had 3 or 4 floor plans, 2 or 3 different elevations for each floor plan. And when we say 2 or 3 different elevations, we're not talking 2 or 3 different colors of siding on a same elevation. We're talking about a distinct architectural difference between one elevation and another. You might have a dormers on one, you have a gables on another, bay windows on a third, so that from the streetscape and from the side, they're architecturally distinct.
Yes.
And it won't be 2 architecturally identical or similar next to each other. So we're on the same page.
That's correct. And if you look at the submittal package, we have some of the preliminary renderings for the homes that we're planning. You can see that they're distinctly different if you go from one elevation to the other, and that is our intention. We don't plan to just put a different color and call it a different home, because it won't be, and we'll have distinct elevations.
I saw that in the packet. I didn't think you were, but I just want to get that out there so that the residents understand what we mean by architecturally distinct and monotony code and how that'll be enforced. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Are there any residents who would like to make comments at this time? Seeing no one, do we have any motion to approve 8B?
Moved.
Any further discussion? Trustee Paveza?
When I saw the plans the first time, like everybody, I was totally against it. And when I saw the second one, I basically was on the fence on whether to approve it, go with it, or not. But several things moved me off the fence. One is, rarely in the past has the board overruled a unanimous recommendation by the Plan Commission. Second, the area where this project is going, I think is pretty good location for it. And third, the more I read in the papers about the way real estate going, more and more the big McMansions on the big lots are becoming fewer and fewer. So the more I thought about it, I thought that this would be a good fit. And also, we're moving it off the office area, but the chances of any kind of sustained office development with the high Cook County commercial taxes is also a negative. So the more I thought about it, I said, I'm satisfied with it, and I'll be voting for it.
Trustee Francis?
Yes, thank you. This is a win for the village in the fact that currently the property is undeveloped. I participated in the Plan Commission in 3 separate proposals for this property: seniors living center, lifestyle center, office building, and none have gone forward. This is a win for the residents on 72nd Street because, yes, the traffic will increase on 72nd Street because currently the land is undeveloped, but it will have a lesser impact to those residents on 72nd Street than if this were developed to its full potential as an office building. They won't have the regular 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. rush hour in the morning and the 3:30 to 5:30 rush hour in the evening without there being an office building there. It'll be a different traffic impact, a lesser traffic impact based on residential use. So, thank you.
Thank you. We've got a motion and a second. May I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Scalpa.
Yes.
Trustee Francis.
Yes.
Trustee Paveza.
Yes.
Trustee Bolus.
Yes.
Trustee Murphy.
Yes.
5-0.
Motion passes 5-0. I would like to also congratulate David Weekly Homes for their efforts. The new plan also includes a lot more things that are vintage Burr Ridge, I think, with curved streets, better landscaping. I know it's half your properties have really ideal backyards and a lot of green space. Congratulations on that. This is our biggest home development since the Savoy Club, and we welcome you to Burr Ridge. Thank you for also believing in us and working with us. Now moving on to 8C, consideration of Plan Commission recommendation to hold a public hearing regarding the amendment to the comprehensive plan. And we have Doug Pollock again.
Thank you. This is related to the petition that was just considered and approved. In order to keep our comprehensive land use plan up to date, when we consider any project that runs counter to the plan, we need to hold a public hearing and amend the plan to keep it consistent with the actual land use and zoning. So this is just a request from the Plan Commission to hold that public hearing and for them to consider and recommend an amendment to the comprehensive land use plan that would change the property at Bridewell and Burridge Parkway from an office recommendation to a residential recommendation consistent with the zoning that you've just approved.
Okay. Any discussion or questions of Doug? Hearing no one, may I have a motion to approve 8C?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Francis?
Yes?
Trustee Scalpa?
Yes.
Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Bolus?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
5-0.
Excellent. And we have 8D, consideration recommendation to reject the bid for municipal campus exterior painting contract. Steve?
Right, in the budget, we have money for the painting of both the police department and the village hall exterior painting. We went out to bid, we only received one bid. It was much higher than we had budgeted and anticipated. We think that's because it's the end of the year and people are busy right now and they weren't interested in bidding the work. So we just feel that we should just go ahead and reject these bids formally and then rebid it in the spring. There's no real urgency to this, but we would like to get it done, but not at these prices.
Questions of our administrator? Trustee Francis?
So you're thinking of the same philosophy that we follow with the road program, bidding out early in the spring or in the wintertime when the bidders are hungry and they've been idle for several months, that we get better pricing? Would apply here? Okay.
That's what our hope is.
Okay. Any further discussion? May I have a motion to approve 8D?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Trustee Bolus?
Yes.
Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Scalpa?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
5-0.
Motion passes 5-0. Other considerations? Anything for announcement, deliberation, and/or discussion only?
Just want to compliment staff on the new sign here for the Village Hall. Looks great. Nice job.
Okay. Anyone else? And now the residents' comments. Any residents that would like to address the board at this time? And reports and communications from village officials.
Just mention our new recycling drop-off facility is for electronic recycling is in place. And over at the Public Works facility, there's information on our website. There's flyers here at the Village Hall if anybody's interested. But hopefully residents in Burridge will take advantage of that.
Great. I'd like to mention one thing that I know that Trustee Murphy would probably like to talk about also, or perhaps in place of any comments you might have regarding the Restaurant Week. I know she's on the events committee, and that's Restaurant Week started today. I'm sorry, technically yesterday. Yes, yesterday. Goes until October 2nd. There are about 7 or 8 restaurants that are offering specials and to promote the village. It was on WGN radio, I think, even on TV station, I think. Wasn't it?
No, WGN TV, LIT radio.
Well, okay, that's a pretty big deal. It's got a lot of coverage. Restaurants like Capri and Cooper's Hawk, Eddie Merlot's, I think, I'm not sure.
Falco's, Kirsten's.
Falco's, Kirsten's Bakery.
Patty's, Sunrise Cafe.
Sunrise Cafe. So that just started. And so to encourage the Burr Ridge restaurants, of which we're becoming so well known. Any other comments? Okay. Now, are there any non-residents who would like to address the board at this time? Dolores?
My name is Dolores Caesar, former trustee and former resident. A couple of things I'd like to comment on. I think that this lakeside point, approving that is a mistake. And the reason I say that, you're giving this developer a 42.5% reduction in what is required for a PUD. A PUD requires 40 acres. This is 22.5. While he made a reduction in the number of homes from 75 to 52, Grella, who was the plan commissioner for a number of years, he was chairman of the plan commission, and he was a trustee for 8 years. I'd like to read to you what he said at the May 16th Plan Commission meeting. He said he is not convinced that there is a need for this project. He suggested 36 units built to subdivision standards of the village. He said that no less than half the number of homes would be appropriate, and the setbacks would have to meet code. The developer's argument is that it faces the Stevenson. Well, I don't see any problem with 71st Street being developed, and those folks all face the exit ramp from the Stevenson to the Tri-State. So I don't think that's a very good argument. I think it would be very helpful when the agenda is written up and you say that there is a recommendation from the Plan Commission. I'd like to know what the vote was of the Plan Commission. I would be very surprised if Grella voted for this. A couple comments.
Dolores, on that note, there you should the vote was 5-0, so it was unanimous voting for this development.
Okay. I have a couple comments about the referendum. I can understand why you have a referendum. You have a deficit of $750,000, $750,000 in 5 funds. When the lawyer from the village's law firm was here in April, he made it quite clear that approval creates a permanent funding source. This is, even though the taxes will remain the same, this is still an increase in taxes, because without passage of this referendum, a person on the due page side would have a reduction of about $83 in their tax bill, which might be enough to cover the driver's ed fee. I have a lot more to say on this referendum later. You have a couple more meetings on this. But I think this is a mistake. You're asking people to buy a pig in a poke. Remember that.
Thank you, Dolores. Are there any other non-residents who would like to make any comments? Seeing none, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Baveza?
Yes.
Trustee Bolus? Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Scapa?
Yes.
Trustee Fences?
Yes.
5-0.
Thank you again for joining us. The meeting is officially adjourned at 8 o'clock, just in time for the presidential debate.